arrogant woman spilled champagne on Caterer'S uniform at party, unaware she was the Mafia boss's wife undercover. The crystal chandeliers above the Rothschild estate ballroom cast fractured light across a sea of designer gowns and $1,000 suits. I moved through the crowd with practiced invisibility, my black catering uniform a passport to the periphery of wealth I'd never touch. The silver tray in my hands held champagne flutes arranged like soldiers, perfectly aligned, perfectly dispensable. Just like me. More champagne. A woman's voice cut through the Mozart quartet playing in the corner. Sharp. Entitled. The kind of voice that had never been told no. I turned toward the sound and found her a vision in crimson silk. Diamonds dripping from her throat like captured starlight. She was beautiful in that untouchable way. Rich women often are. Her blonde hair swept into an intricate updo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her lips, painted the exact shade of her dress, curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You? She pointed a manicured finger at me. Bring those here. I crossed the marble floor, each step echoing my presence in a world where I was meant to remain silent. As I approached, I noticed her eyes cold and assessing, the way people look at furniture they're considering replacing. Finally, she said, reaching for a glass. Her movements were careless, theatrical. The service here is absolutely. Her elbow connected with my tray. Time fractured into slow motion. Champagne arced through the air like liquid gold, catching the light before gravity claimed it. The flutes shattered against the floor in a symphony of breaking glass. But worst of all, far worse, the champagne cascaded down the front of my uniform, soaking through the fabric, cold and humiliating. The music stopped. Every conversation died. 200 pairs of eyes found me, standing in a puddle of shame and expensive alcohol. Oh my God. The woman's hand flew to her mouth, but her eyes danced with something that looked suspiciously like satisfaction. You clumsy little, how dare you assault me with champagne? Heat flooded my face. I didn't. You hit the tray. Are you calling me a liar? Her voice rose, carrying to every corner of the suddenly silent ballroom. Do you know who I am? I could have you fired. I could have you arrested. Something snapped inside me. Maybe it was the months of swallowing my pride while serving people who treated me like a ghost. Maybe it was the rent I couldn't pay, the student loans crushing me, the way my hands ached from 14-hour shifts. Or maybe it was simply that I was tired of being invisible until someone needed a target. Then maybe you should watch where you're swinging your designer accessories, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Some of us are actually working for a living. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The woman's face transformed, fury, replacing her affected distress. You little... Is there a problem here? The voice came from behind me, low, controlled, with an edge that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It wasn't loud, but it carried authority that made the woman's theatrical rage seem like a child's tantrum in comparison. I turned, and the world shifted on its axis. He stood 3 feet away, but his presence filled the entire ballroom. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a black suit that looked like it had been sewn directly onto his body by Italian angels. Dark hair, precisely cut. Strong jaw shadowed with stubble that suggested he had more important things to worry about than perfect grooming. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath, dark, intelligent, and absolutely ruthless. They swept over me with an intensity that felt physical, taking in my soaked uniform, the shattered glass at my feet, the defiance I couldn't quite hide. For a moment, something flickered in those depths. Surprise? Recognition? But it was gone before I could name it. Mr. Marchesi. The woman's voice had transformed completely, honey-sweet and trembling. This servant attacked me. She threw champagne all over. That's not what happened, I interrupted, which was probably stupid, but I'd already destroyed any chance of keeping this job. Might as well go down with dignity intact. She hit my tray. Marchesi's gaze returned to me, and I felt it like a touch, assessing, calculating, seeing things I hadn't meant to show. When he spoke, his voice was dangerously soft. And you are? Someone who's about to be unemployed, I said, meeting his eyes because some instinct told me that looking away would be worse. But at least I'll leave with my honesty intact. The corner of his mouth twitched. It might have been amusement. It might have been something more dangerous. He turned to the woman in red. Mrs. Castellano, I believe I saw you reach for the champagne carelessly. Perhaps you should be more mindful when staff are trying to serve you. The woman's face drained of color. Of course, Mr. Marchesi. I didn't mean it was an accident. Accidents happen. His tone made it clear the conversation was over. "Salvatore will show you to your car. I think you've had enough celebration for one evening." Two men in dark suits materialized from nowhere, flanking Mrs. Castellano like shadows given form. She opened her mouth, closed it, then disappeared into the crowd with the men following. The other guests suddenly remembered their conversations, their drinks, their carefully cultivated indifference to other people's disasters. I was alone with Marchesi and the wreckage at my feet. "Thank you," I managed, though the words felt inadequate. "You didn't have to. Go change." He cut me off, but his voice had shifted into something I couldn't quite read. "There's a staff locker room on the 3rd floor, East Wing. Someone will bring you a fresh uniform." He started to turn away, but I caught his sleeve without thinking. The fabric was impossibly soft cashmere. Probably, and the moment my fingers made contact, electricity shot up my arm. We both froze. "Who are you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He looked down at my hand on his arm, then so slowly lifted his gaze to mine. In his eyes, I saw something that made my heart slam against my ribs. Danger, promise, recognition that shouldn't exist between strangers, someone you should stay far away from. His voice was barely above a whisper, meant only for me. "But something tells me you won't." He pulled away, and the absence of his warmth felt like a physical loss. "3rd floor," he repeated. "East Wing. Don't make me tell you twice." Then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd, leaving me standing in champagne and shattered crystal, my heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with humiliation. I didn't know his first name. I didn't know why Mrs. Castellano had looked at him, like he held her life in his hands. But I knew with absolute terrifying certainty that my life had just changed forever, and I hadn't even learned his first name yet. The staff locker room was empty when I arrived, my footsteps echoing off the marble floors of the 3rd floor corridor. My uniform clung to my skin, champagne sticky and cold, a constant reminder of my collision with a world I didn't understand. "East Wing," he'd said, as if I belonged here, as if I had any right to navigate the private corridors of the Rothschild estate. The locker room was nicer than my entire apartment, spotless white tiles, brass fixtures, even a small sitting area with a velvet couch. A fresh uniform hung on a hook by the door, my size, as if someone had been expecting me, or watching me. I changed quickly, hyper-aware of every sound. The wet uniform went into a plastic bag someone had thoughtfully provided. Everything was too perfect, too orchestrated, like pieces moving on a chessboard I couldn't see. When I emerged, a young man in a server's uniform was waiting in the hallway. He couldn't have been more than 20, with nervous eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. "Miss?" His voice cracked slightly. "Mr. Marchesi asked me to escort you back downstairs. Different station this time. Gallery service." "The gallery?" I frowned. "That's where the private collections are. Staff aren't usually allowed." "Mr. Marchesi's orders." He shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Please, I can't. We shouldn't keep him waiting." The way he said it, like Marchesi was something more than just another wealthy guest, sent a warning signal through my brain. But I followed anyway, because what choice did I have? The gallery occupied the entire West Wing, a long corridor lined with paintings worth more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. Classical masterpieces alternated with modern abstracts, all lit by soft amber lights that made the colors glow like they were alive. Only a handful of guests wandered here, speaking in hushed tones better suited to churches than cocktail parties. I took my position by a small service bar set up in an alcove, arranging glasses and napkins while trying to become invisible again. It almost worked. "You're her." I turned to find a man watching me from beside a Caravaggio. He was older than Marchesi, late 50s, perhaps with silver hair and a face that had once been handsome before time, and something harder had carved it into sharp angles. His tuxedo was impeccable, but his eyes were cold as January. "I'm sorry?" I kept my voice neutral, professional. "The girl who stood up to Victoria Castellano." He moved closer, his steps measured and deliberate. Brave, or incredibly stupid. I haven't decided which yet. It was just a misunderstanding. "No." He cut me off with a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. "It was a power play. Victoria thought she could humiliate you to prove something to the room. You refused to be humiliated. And then Dante Marchesi intervened. He said the name like a prayer and a curse combined. Tell me, do you know what that means?" My heart kicked into a higher gear. Dante. So that was his first name. It means he's What? Chivalrous? The man's laugh was soft and utterly humorless. Chivalrous. God, you really have no idea, do you? He leaned in slightly, and I caught the scent of expensive cologne mixed with something darker. Cigar smoke, maybe, or gunpowder. Dante Marchesi doesn't do anything without a reason. If he protected you, it's because you're useful to him somehow. Or, his gaze traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl. Because he wants you. You don't know what you're talking about. But my voice wavered. Don't I? He reached past me for a champagne flute, his movements slow and intimidating. Let me give you some free advice, little sparrow. Fly away from here. Tonight. Before you get caught in something you can't escape. Who are you? Someone who knows how this game ends. He raised the glass in a mock toast. And it never ends well for girls like you. He walked away, leaving me standing there with my pulse hammering in my ears. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of serving drinks and avoiding eye contact. I caught glimpses of Dante always across the room, always surrounded by men in expensive suits who leaned in when he spoke, who laughed at his words like they were gospel. He never once looked in my direction, but I felt his presence like a magnetic field pulling at something deep inside me. The party was winding down when I finally escaped to the kitchen to return my tray. The catering manager, a harried woman named Denise, who usually treated staff like expendable resources, actually smiled at me. Good work tonight, she said, which was so unprecedented I actually looked behind me to see if she was talking to someone else. Mr. Marchesi's head of security asked for your contact information. Said you might be needed for future events. Ice water flooded my veins. What? It's good news. Private events for the Marchesi family pay triple our usual rate. You should be thanking, I don't want. I caught myself, forced my voice to calm. I'm not interested in private events. Thank you. Denise's smile evaporated. Not interested? Do you have any idea how many servers would kill for this opportunity? Kill. The word hung in the air like prophecy. I'm sure someone else would be better suited. The request was specifically for you. Her voice had gone cold. And when the Marchesi family requests something, we don't say no. Understand? I understood that I was trapped, that whatever net was closing around me had been cast the moment champagne hit my uniform, and Dante Marchesi's dark eyes had found mine across a ballroom full of strangers. I understand, I whispered. Denise nodded, satisfied. Good. Someone will contact you next week with details. I left through the service entrance, the November air biting through my jacket. The parking lot was nearly empty now. Most of the guests already departed in their German luxury cars and hired limousines. My beat-up Honda sat alone under a flickering streetlight, looking as out of place as I felt. I was halfway to my car when I sensed him. Dante Marchesi stood beside a black Mercedes, half hidden in shadow. He wasn't looking at me, or maybe he was, and the darkness made it impossible to tell. But I felt his attention like a physical touch, heavy and inescapable. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I stopped, turned, met what I thought was his gaze through the darkness. This isn't over, is it? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. For a long moment, silence. Then his voice carried across the parking lot, low and absolutely certain. It hasn't even begun. A car door opened. A man emerged from the Mercedes, one of the shadows who'd escorted Victoria Castellano away. He said something. To Dante I couldn't hear, but his body language was urgent, aggressive. Dante's response was a single word, sharp as a blade. The man flinched, nodded, disappeared back into the car. When Dante looked at me again, something had changed in his posture, something predatory and protective all at once. Go home, he said. Lock your doors. And tomorrow. He paused, and I swore I heard something like regret in his voice. Tomorrow, everything changes. The Mercedes pulled away, taillights bleeding red into the darkness. I stood there long after he was gone, my keys cutting into my palm, my heart racing with fear and something far more dangerous. Anticipation. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound made me jump, the neighbor's door slamming, footsteps in the hallway, the wail of sirens somewhere in the city's dark heart. I sat by my window, watching the street below, half expecting the black Mercedes to materialize like a demon summoned by my racing thoughts. Tomorrow, everything changes. What did that mean? And why did part of me, some reckless, self-destructive part, want to find out? Morning came gray and cold. I showered, made coffee I couldn't drink, and tried to convince myself that last night had been nothing more than a strange encounter with a powerful man at a party. Rich people were eccentric. They said dramatic things. It didn't mean anything. My phone rang at exactly 9 o'clock. Unknown number. My hand trembled as I answered. Hello? Miss Elena Voss. Not a question, a statement. The voice was male, professional, utterly emotionless. You have an appointment at 11 o'clock this morning. A car will arrive at your residence in 90 minutes. Please be ready. Wait, I didn't make any appointment. Who is this? The car will arrive in 90 minutes, he repeated, as if I hadn't spoken. Dress appropriately. Business casual will suffice. I'm not going anywhere until you tell me. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my reflection ghostly. In the black screen. They knew my full name. They knew where I lived, and they expected me to simply comply, like I had no choice in the matter. Maybe I didn't. I dressed in the only business casual outfit I owned, black slacks and a cream blouse I'd bought for job interviews that never led anywhere. My hands shook as I applied minimal makeup, as I tried to tame my dark hair into something resembling professional. In the mirror, I looked pale, frightened, like prey being prepared for slaughter. The car arrived at exactly 10:30. Not the Mercedes from last night, but a sleek black sedan with windows tinted so dark they looked like portals to another dimension. The driver was a mountain of a man in a tailored suit, his face expressionless as he opened the rear door. Miss Voss, I should have run. Should have locked my door and called the police and pretended this was all a nightmare I could wake up from. Instead, I got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and expensive. Cologne, the same scent I'd caught on Dante last night. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded disturbingly like a prison cell locking. As we pulled into traffic, I tried the door handle. Locked. Where are you taking me? My voice came out smaller than I intended. The driver's eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. Mr. Marchesi will explain everything. We drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city center and heading toward the harbor district where old money had built estates that looked out over the gray water. The buildings changed from apartments to townhouses to massive gated properties hidden behind walls and elaborate ironwork. The car turned into a driveway flanked by stone pillars topped with snarling lions. Gates opened automatically, or maybe someone was watching, deciding whether to grant us entry. The driveway curved through landscaped gardens even November couldn't diminish, leading to a mansion that made the Rothschild estate look modest by comparison. 3 stories of limestone and glass, with wings spreading out like a predator's embrace. Balconies and terraces overlooked the harbor. Even the garage we passed looked bigger than most houses. This wasn't wealth. This was power made visible. The car stopped at the front entrance. Another man in a dark suit opened my door, his face as impassive as the driver's. They moved with military precision, their eyes constantly scanning, hands never far from their jacket pockets, where they probably kept guns. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it crystallized something I'd been trying to ignore since last night. Dante Marchesi wasn't just wealthy. He was dangerous. And I had walked straight into his web. The front doors opened before we reached them. The foyer beyond was all marble and mirrors, a crystal chandelier hanging from a ceiling 2 stories high. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers, something melancholy and Russian. This way, Miss Voss. I followed the man, through corridors that seemed designed to disorient, left, right, through a sitting room that could have housed my entire apartment, past walls hung with art I'd only seen in textbooks. Finally, we stopped before a set of double doors made of dark wood carved with intricate patterns that might have been flowers or might have been screaming faces. The man knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting for a response. Miss Elena Voss, he announced, then stepped aside. The room beyond was a study that belonged in a Gothic novel, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a fireplace large enough to stand in, windows overlooking the harbor where ships moved like toys on gray water, and behind a massive desk made from what looked like a single piece of black marble, backlit by the cold morning light, Dante Marchesi. He stood as I entered, his movements fluid and controlled. In the daylight filtering through the windows, he was even more devastating than I remembered. His suit today was charcoal gray, his white shirt open at the collar, exposing a throat that looked carved from stone. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes God, those eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. Elena. My name in his mouth sounded like a prayer and a threat. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? The corner of his mouth lifted. No. But I appreciate you pretending you did. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Leather, expensive, positioned so I'd have to look up at him. A power play so obvious it was almost insulting. I remained standing. His smile widened, showing teeth. Sit, please. What I have to tell you, you'll want to be sitting down. I'd rather stand for whatever threats you're planning to make. Threats? He moved around the desk with predatory grace, each step deliberate. Elena, I'm not going to threaten you. I'm going to offer you a choice. Probably the most important choice of your life. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. Last night, you made an enemy, he said softly. Victoria Castellano has powerful connections. She's already made calls. By tomorrow, you won't be able to find work in this city. Your landlord will receive complaints. Your life will become complicated. Fear spiked through me. Because I spilled champagne on her? Because you embarrassed her? And because I defended you? His gaze held mine, unblinking. In my world, that matters. It makes you mine by association, whether you like it or not. I'm not anyone's. I know. He cut me off gently. Which is why I'm giving you a choice. I can make Victoria's vendetta disappear. I can ensure you're protected, employed, safe. All you have to do. He paused, and something flickered across his face. Hesitation? Regret? Is marry me? The world tilted sideways. What? For 6 months, he continued, his voice steady while my reality shattered. A contract marriage. You play the role of my wife in public. You live here, attend events, maintain the appearance of a relationship. In return, you receive protection, a substantial salary, and when it's over, enough money to start whatever life you want, anywhere you want. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. You're insane. Probably. He moved closer, and I smelled that scent again, expensive and dangerous. But I'm also your only option. Unless you want to run, change your name. Start over in a new city with nothing but what you can carry. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Why me? Why this? For the first time, something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Because I need a wife the world will believe I chose for love. Not strategy. Someone real. Someone who looks at me like I'm a man, not a monster. His jaw tightened. And because last night, when you touched my arm, I felt something I haven't felt in years. What? He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. Hope. I stepped back, putting distance between us, needing air that wasn't saturated with his presence. This is insane, I repeated, but my voice lacked conviction. People don't just... You can't buy a wife like ordering takeout. I'm not buying you. Dante returned to his desk, creating space I desperately needed. I'm offering you a business arrangement, one that benefits us both. Benefits? A hysterical laugh escaped me. You get what, a pretty prop for your arm? And I get what, exactly? 6 months of pretending to love a man I don't even know? A man who probably... I stopped myself, but his eyes had already sharpened. A man who probably what, Elena? Say it. A man who scares people just by existing. The words tumbled out. Everyone at that party looked at you like you were a god or the devil. And I'm not sure which terrifies me more. The driver who brought me here has a Resplayed gun. So does the man who escorted me inside. This house has security cameras in every corner. So tell me, Dante Marchesi, what exactly are you? Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. He moved to the window, his back to me, silhouette dark against the gray morning light. When he spoke, his voice was stripped of the smooth confidence he'd worn like armor. I'm the head of the Marchesi family. We control shipping, real estate, construction across 3 states, legitimate businesses, mostly. But my family's roots... He paused, shoulders tense. Let's just say we grew from soil fertilized with blood and secrets. I inherited an empire built on fear. I've been trying to transform it into something clean, something sustainable. But the old families, they resist change. They test me constantly, looking for weakness. He turned, and the vulnerability in his face made my chest ache. A man without a wife, without family, Without emotional attachments, they see that as weakness. They think I'm cold, untrustworthy. So they plot against me, form alliances, wait for me to make a mistake. His hands flexed at his sides. But a man who falls in love? Who brings home a woman from outside our world? Someone he chose with his heart instead of his head. That man is unpredictable, dangerous. That man they'll think twice about crossing. So I'm… what? A shield made of lies? You're a chance. He crossed back to me, each step measured. For both of us, I get stability, time to consolidate power without constantly watching my back. You get protection from Victoria and her circle, money to change your life, and, his voice dropped, 6 months away from whatever life you're running from. My breath caught. I'm not running from anything. No? One dark eyebrow lifted. You're 26 years old, working as a caterer despite having a degree in art history from Columbia. You live alone in a studio apartment in a neighborhood that's 2 blocks from. Dangerous. You have no social media presence, no close friends that I could find, and you haven't spoken to your family in 4 years. So tell me, Elena, what are you hiding from? The accuracy of his assessment felt like a violation. You investigated me. Of course I did. No apology in his voice. The moment I decided I wanted you, I needed to know everything. Your mother remarried when you were 15, a man who made your life hell until you left for college. You put yourself through school working 3 jobs. You graduated with honors but couldn't find work in your field because you wouldn't play the political games required. You're proud, stubborn, and you'd rather suffer than compromise your integrity. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. You have no right. I have every right. He closed the distance between us, his presence overwhelming. Because I'm offering you a way out. 6 months of playing a role, and then freedom. Real freedom. Enough. Money to open your own gallery, or travel, or do whatever the hell you want without worrying about rent or student loans or whether you'll eat this week. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching. I saw you last night, Elena. The way you stood up to Victoria despite knowing it would cost you. The fire in your eyes when you refused to back down. You're stronger than you think, and I need that strength beside me. Why does it feel like I'm making a deal with the devil? His smile was sad, resigned. Because maybe you are. I should have walked out. Should have called his bluff and taken my chances with Victoria's vendetta. But he was right about one thing. I was tired. Tired of struggling, of being invisible, of living a half-life afraid to reach for anything real, because reaching meant risking everything. If I agree, my voice trembled. What exactly would this arrangement entail? Something sparked in his eyes. Hope. Hunger. He moved back to his desk, pulled out a leather folder, and opened it to reveal a thick document. A contract. Legally binding. 6 months from the date of our marriage ceremony. You'll live here. In the West Wing, your own suite. Complete privacy. We'll share public spaces when necessary. Attend events together. Maintain the appearance of a romantic relationship. But your bedroom is yours alone. I won't touch you without your explicit permission. He flipped through pages, pointing to various sections. You'll receive a monthly salary of $50,000, plus a clothing allowance, access to security, and use of vehicles. At the end of 6 months, you'll receive a lump sum of $1 million, provided you fulfilled the terms of the agreement. If you choose to leave early, you forfeit the final payment but keep everything earned until that point. My head spun. $1 million, plus what you earn monthly. Call it hazard pay. His expression darkened. My world isn't safe, Elena. Even playing the EnemiesToLovers role of my wife comes with risks. You deserve to be compensated for that. I stared at the contract, at the elegant typeface that spelled out my potential future in legal terminology. 6 months, $1 million, freedom. What happens after? I asked quietly. When the 6 months end? We divorce quietly. You take your money and disappear. Start whatever life you want. I'll ensure you have the resources to truly vanish if that's what you choose. You'll never have to see me again. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so final, sent an unexpected pang through my chest. And if someone discovers it's fake? If your enemies figure out this is just a business arrangement? His jaw tightened. Then we both pray they kill me quickly before they get to you. The casual way he mentioned his own death should have sent me running. Instead, it revealed something I'd been trying to ignore. Beneath the power and the control, Dante Marchesi was just a man. A lonely, desperate man trying to survive in a world that wanted to destroy him. I need time. I said. To think. You have until tomorrow morning. He pulled a phone from his desk drawer, new, expensive, still in the box. This is yours. Untraceable. My number is programmed in. Call me by 9 a.m. with your decision. Say yes, and we'll be married by the end of the week. Say no. He paused, something pained crossing his face. Say no, and I'll have my people ensure Victoria forgets about you. You'll never see me again. I took the phone, its weight somehow more significant than it should be. Why me? I asked again, needing to understand. Out of everyone in that ballroom, everyone in this city, why did you choose me? He looked at me for a long moment, his dark eyes holding secrets I couldn't read. Because when you touched me last night, I didn't flinch. His voice was barely a whisper. I haven't let anyone touch me in 3 years. Not since. He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you didn't look at me with fear or calculation or greed. You looked at me like I was just a man who'd done you a kindness. And I realized I'd give anything to have someone look at me that way for just a little while longer. The vulnerability in his admission cracked something open in my chest. I should go, I managed. Marco will drive you home. He pressed a button on his desk and the door opened. The same massive man from earlier appeared. Tomorrow, Elena. 9 a.m. Whatever you decide. His voice caught. Thank you for considering it. I walked to the door, clutching the phone like a lifeline. At the threshold, I looked back. Dante stood by the window again, silhouette dark against the light, looking more alone than any person should ever look. Can I ask you one more thing? He turned, surprise flickering across his face. What happened 3 years ago? I asked softly. What made you stop letting people touch you? For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I learned that everyone I loved was either a liar or a grave waiting to be filled. The door closed between us, but his words followed me all the way home. I didn't sleep that night either. The phone sat on my nightstand, dark and silent, a portal to a life I couldn't quite imagine. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dante's face, the vulnerability beneath the armor, the loneliness that mirrored my own. Everyone I loved was either a liar or a grave waiting to be filled. What had happened to him? What had carved that particular wound into his soul? At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made tea I wouldn't drink. My apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in, reminding me of everything I'd been trying to escape. The water-stained ceiling, the radiator that clanked but never quite heated the room, the sirens outside that never stopped, the city's eternal scream. I pulled out my laptop and did what I should have done yesterday, researched Dante Marchesi. The results were complicated. Dozens of society photos showed him at charity galas, business conferences, standing beside politicians and celebrities. Always immaculate, always controlled, always alone. In every photo, people leaned toward him, seeking his attention, but there was distance in his eyes, like he was present in body, but had locked his soul away somewhere safe. The articles were more revealing. The Marchesi family had controlled the waterfront for 3 generations, their empire built on shipping and construction. Dante's grandfather had been investigated multiple times for racketeering, though nothing ever stuck. His father had died 10 years ago, heart attack, officially, though conspiracy theories suggested otherwise. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. Dante's younger brother, Luca, had been killed. Shot outside a nightclub in what police called a robbery gone wrong. But the comment sections told a different story, whispers of a hit, of rival families, of Dante's subsequent consolidation of power that was swift and merciless. 2 months after Luca's death, Dante's fiancée had disappeared, just vanished. No body, no explanation. Her name was Isabelle Laurent, daughter of a French diplomat. Beautiful, elegant, educated, the perfect wife for a man trying to legitimize his empire. The official story was that she'd left him, unable to handle the danger of his world. But the way Dante had looked at me when he mentioned graves waiting to be filled, I shut the laptop, heart racing. He'd lost everyone. His brother murdered, his fiancée gone. And now he was asking me to step into that void, to play a role that might have cost the last woman her life. The logical part of my brain screamed at me to run. But another part, the part that had stood up to Victoria Castellano, the part that refused to bow to a world that wanted me invisible, that part whispered something different. What if this is your only chance to be someone other than afraid? Dawn came gray and cold. I showered, dressed, Made coffee. I actually drank this time. The phone on my nightstand seemed to pulse with potential energy, waiting for me to make a choice that would change everything. At 8:30, my actual phone rang. Not the burner Dante had given me, but my regular phone. Unknown number. Hello? Elena Voss? A woman's voice, crisp and professional. This is Margaret Chen from Victoria Castellano's legal team. We're calling to inform you that you're being sued for assault, property damage, and emotional distress stemming from the incident at the Rothschild estate. My blood ran cold. That's ridiculous. She hit my tray. We have 12 witnesses who will testify otherwise. The lawsuit seeks $200,000 in damages, plus legal fees. You'll be served with papers later today. I suggest you find yourself an attorney. A good one. The line went dead. $200,000. I didn't have $2,000. This would destroy me, bankrupt me, ruin any chance of future employment, follow me for the rest of my life, unless... I picked up the burner phone, hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Dante's number was the only contact. I stared at it for a long moment, my finger hovering over the call button. This was it. The point of no return. I pressed call. He answered on the first ring. Elena. Just my name. But the way he said it, relief and hunger and something darker all tangled together. Victoria's suing me, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. $200,000 for assault. I know. She filed the paperwork an hour ago. His tone hardened. It's a scare tactic. She wants you to come crawling, to beg for mercy so she can humiliate you publicly. Will she win? In court? Probably not. But it doesn't matter, the legal fees alone would bury you. She knows that. A pause. Is that why you're calling? Partly. I closed my eyes, took a breath. But also because last night, I realized something. I'm 26 years old, and I've been surviving instead of living, playing it safe, staying invisible, afraid to reach for anything real, because reaching means risking everything. Elena, I'm not finished. The words came faster now, driven by momentum and fear, and something that felt dangerously like hope. You asked me what I'm running from. The truth, I'm running from becoming exactly what my mother was: small, scared, trapped in a life she hated because she was too afraid to gamble on something better. And I'm tired of running. Silence on the other end, heavy with attention. So here's my answer. Dante Marchesi. Yes, I'll marry you. I'll play your wife, attend your events, stand beside you in whatever war you're fighting. For 6 months, for $1 million. And then I'll take that money and build a life that's actually mine. Elena. His voice was rough, almost broken. You understand what you're agreeing to? The danger? The lies? I understand. That everyone dies eventually. Might as well do something terrifying while I'm alive. A sound escaped him, half laugh, half sigh. You're either the bravest or the most foolish woman I've ever met. Can't I be both? This time his laugh was real, warm, and it did something strange to my chest. Marco will pick you up in an hour. Bring whatever you can't live without. Everything else will replace. We need to move quickly. The ceremony is scheduled for tomorrow evening. Tomorrow? My voice pitched higher. That's not enough time. It has to be. Word of Victoria's lawsuit will spread by noon. If we're already married when it becomes public knowledge, she'll look petty and vindictive. If we wait, it looks like I'm rescuing you out of pity. His tone shifted, became gentler. Unless you've changed your mind? There's no shame in walking away, Elena. Not from this. I thought of my cramped apartment, my suffocating life, the years stretching ahead filled with nothing but survival. I haven't changed my mind. 1 hour. I'll be ready. Elena? He stopped me before I could hang up. Thank you. For taking a chance on me. On this. I won't let you regret it. You can't promise that. No. His voice dropped to something raw and honest. But I can promise I'll try like hell to keep you safe, even if it costs me everything. The line went dead, leaving me standing in my apartment with my heart hammering and my future suddenly, terrifyingly uncertain. I had 1 hour to pack up my life. 1 hour before I walked into Dante Marchesi's world and became someone I'd never imagined being. 1 hour before I became a Mafia wife. I looked around my apartment one last time at the peeling paint, the thrift store furniture, the window overlooking a street that never slept. This had been my cage and my sanctuary, the place where I'd hidden from the world. Tomorrow, I would step into the light, and pray I didn't burn. The west wing of Dante's mansion was a universe unto itself. Marco had delivered me to a suite of rooms that could have housed a family of 5-bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in silk, sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, bathroom done in marble and gold that looked like it belonged in a palace. My pathetic collection of belongings, 2 suitcases and a backpack, sat in the middle of the bedroom floor like refugees from another life. "Miss Voss?" A woman appeared in the doorway, elegant and 50-ish, with sharp eyes that assessed me in a single glance. "I'm Claudia Moretti, Mr. Marchese's personal assistant. I'll be helping you prepare for tomorrow's ceremony." "Prepare?" I'd been standing at the window, trying to calm my racing heart. "I thought it was just a quick courthouse thing. Mr. Marchese has a reputation to maintain." Her smile was professional but not unkind. "The ceremony will be intimate, immediate family, and close associates only, but it must look authentic, which means you need to look like a bride he couldn't wait to marry, not a woman he hired for convenience." The bluntness should have stung. Instead, it was almost refreshing. "So what do I need to do?" Claudia's smile widened. "Everything I tell you. Starting now." The next 18 hours were a whirlwind of preparation that left me dizzy and disoriented. A team of stylists descended on my suite: hair, makeup, wardrobe, measuring, examining, transforming. A wedding dress appeared, custom-made in impossibly short time. Ivory silk that hugged my body like water and made me look like someone else entirely. Someone beautiful. Someone worthy of standing beside a man like Dante Marchese. "You'll need to know certain things," Claudia said as the stylists worked. "Dante's family, his business associates, the way our world operates." She laid out a photo album on the sitting room table, pointing to faces I needed to memorize. "This is Dante's uncle, Giovanni Marchese. He controls the family's construction interests. Dangerous man. He opposed Dante's succession when his father died. They maintain a civil relationship, but trust him like you'd trust a snake." Next photo. An older woman with severe features and cold eyes. Dante's aunt, Margherita. She raised him and his brother after their mother died in childbirth. She's protective, suspicious. She'll test you, try to catch you in lies. Never let her see you sweat. More faces, more names, more warnings. The Castellanos Victoria's family controlled gambling and entertainment. The Russos dealt in real estate and political influence. The Bianchis ran the docks, all of them circling each other like sharks, waiting for blood in the water. And this, Claudia's finger rested on a photo of a beautiful woman with dark hair and darker eyes. "This is Isabelle Laurent, Dante's former fiancée." My breath caught. "The one who disappeared?" Claudia's expression closed off. "That's not our concern. What matters is that everyone will compare you to her. She was educated, sophisticated, bred for this world. You." She looked at me appraisingly. "You're an unknown quantity. Some will see that as weakness. Others will see it as Dante finally choosing with his heart instead of his head. Which is exactly what he wants them to think." "Precisely." She closed the album. "One more thing, Elena. In public, you need to sell this relationship. Touches, glances, the illusion of intimacy. Can you do that with a man you barely know?" I thought of Dante's hand almost touching my face, the electricity when I'd grabbed his sleeve, the way his voice had broken when he thanked me. "I can try. Trying isn't enough. You need to make them believe you're falling in love with him, that this marriage is real." Her voice softened slightly. "Even if it terrifies you." That evening, Dante sent word requesting my presence at dinner. A private meal, just the 2 of us, before the circus began tomorrow. I found him in a dining room that could have seated 40 but had been set for 2, candles flickering on a table positioned by a window overlooking the water. He stood as I entered, and something flickered in his eyes when he saw me: surprise, appreciation, something deeper I couldn't name. "Elena." He pulled out my chair, his hand grazing my shoulder. Even through fabric, the touch burned. "You look like an expensive doll?" I tried for lightness, but my voice wavered. "Like yourself, only more." He sat across from me, and in the candlelight, I could see the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his jaw. "Did Claudia overwhelm you?" She terrified me. I accepted wine from a silent server who appeared and vanished like a ghost. "Your family sounds delightful." His laugh was dark. "They're vipers, every last one of them. But they're my vipers, and I need you to navigate them without getting bitten." "What if I can't?" The question came out smaller than intended. "What if they see through this immediately?" Dante was quiet. for a moment, studying me across the candlelight. Then he reached across the table, palm up, an invitation. Slowly, I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and calused and gentle. That same electricity from the night we met shot up my arm, but this time I didn't pull away. "Listen to me," he said softly. "Tomorrow, you're going to stand beside me in front of people who want to see me fail, who want to find cracks in my armor. And you," his thumb stroked across my knuckles. "You're going to be terrified, I know that. But I need you to channel that fear into something else, defiance. The same fire you showed Victoria when you refused to be humiliated. That's different. That was you being yourself, which is all I need you to be tomorrow." His grip tightened slightly. "I'm not asking you to love me, Elena. I'm asking you to be brave enough to pretend you could. Can you do that?" I looked down at our joined hands, at the way his fingers dwarfed mine, at the way this simple touch felt more intimate than anything I'd experienced in years. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'll try. That's all I'm asking." He released my hand, and the loss felt physical. "Now tell me something real, something that has nothing to do with contracts or families or any of this." "What?" "I want to know you. Not Elena Voss, the woman I hired. Elena Voss, the person." He leaned back, sipping his wine. "What did you dream about being when you were a child?" The question caught me off guard, disarming me with its simplicity. "A museum curator," I said quietly. "I wanted to spend my life surrounded by beautiful things, telling their stories, helping people see the world differently." I laughed bitterly. "Stupid, right? Now I'm living in a museum of sorts, except all the beautiful things here are probably stolen or bought with blood money." "Not stolen." His voice held an edge. "And I've spent the last 5 years bleeding my family's fortune clean. Everything illegal, everything morally compromised, I've been systematically dismantling it, replacing dirty money with legitimate business. It's why the old families hate me. I'm trying to drag them into the light." "Why?" His eyes met mine, and in them I saw old pain and new determination. "Because my brother believed we could be better. He was studying law, planning to help me transform everything. He believed in justice, in redemption." Dante's voice cracked slightly. 3 days before he was killed, he told me that legacy isn't what you inherit, it's what you choose to build. So I'm building something he would have been proud of, even if it kills me. The raw honesty in his words cracked something open in my chest. "He would be proud," I said softly. "Anyone would be. Would you?" The question was barely a whisper. "If you knew everything I've done to get here? The compromises, the violence, the bodies I've buried, literally and figuratively, would you still think there's something worth redeeming?" I looked at this man across from me, this complicated collision of darkness and desperate hope, and realized something that should have terrified me. "I think we're all trying to redeem something," I said. "The only difference is how hard we're willing to fight for it." For a long moment, we sat in silence, the candles flickering between us, the harbor dark beyond the windows. Tomorrow, I would become his wife. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, for just a few stolen hours, we were simply two damaged people sharing a meal and pretending that honesty didn't come with a price. "Elena?" Dante's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "Yes, thank you." His expression was soft, vulnerable, foreseeing me as more than the monster everyone expects. "Thank you," I countered, "for giving me a reason to stop hiding." He raised his glass, and after a heartbeat, I raised mine. "To tomorrow," he said. "To survival," I added. Our glasses touched with a delicate chime that sounded like a promise or a warning. I still wasn't sure which. The ceremony was scheduled for 7 p.m. in the mansion's private chapel, a converted conservatory with walls of glass that overlooked the harbor. As dusk approached, the sky bled red and gold, painting everything in shades of fire and blood. Appropriate, I thought, for a wedding built on lies. Claudia had been with me all day, orchestrating every detail with military precision. The dress fit perfectly ivory silk with delicate lace at the shoulders, elegant but not ostentatious. My hair had been swept up, a few loose curls framing my face. The makeup artist had worked magic, making my fear look like the nervous glow of a blushing bride. "You look beautiful," Claudia said, studying me in the mirror. "But that's not enough. You need to look happy, in love. Like marrying Dante Marchesi is the fulfillment of every dream you've ever had. That's a lot to ask from someone who met him 3 days ago." "Then think," All of it is acting. The performance of your life. She adjusted my veil. Everyone down there is watching for cracks. Don't give them any. She left me alone to gather myself. Through the window, I could see guests arriving, expensive cars disgorging men in tailored suits and women dripping with jewelry. The Marchesi family and their associates, come to witness Dante's unexpected marriage to a nobody, come to judge whether I was worthy of their world. A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in." Marco entered, surprisingly gentle for a man his size. "It's time, Miss Voss. Mr. Marchesi is waiting." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Marco, can I ask you something?" He nodded, patient. Is Dante a good man? Underneath everything?" Marco's expression softened in a way I hadn't expected. "Mr. Marchesi saved my life 6 years ago, pulled me out of a situation that would have killed me, gave me purpose when I had nothing. He's hard, yes, dangerous when he needs to be, but he's also the most loyal man I've ever known." He paused. "If he's chosen you, Miss Voss, it's because he sees something worth protecting. Don't make him regret that." I nodded, not trusting my voice. The walk to the chapel felt endless. Every step echoed in the marble corridors, marking time until I reached the point of no return. Music drifted through the air, something classical and melancholy, strings weeping a song that sounded like a funeral dirge disguised as a wedding march. The chapel doors stood open, golden light spilling out into the darkening hallway. Marco offered his arm. "Ready? No. Yes." We stepped into the chapel, and the world narrowed to a single point. Dante stood at the altar, backlit by the dying sun, and he looked like something carved from shadow and starlight. His suit was midnight black, his white shirt a stark contrast against his throat. But it was his face that stopped my breath, raw, unguarded, stripped of all the careful control I'd seen before. He looked at me like I was salvation walking toward him through fire. The guests blurred into meaningless faces as I walked down the aisle. I caught glimpses of an older woman with severe features who must be Aunt Margherita, watching me with predatory assessment. A silver-haired man I recognized as Giovanni, his smile too sharp to be friendly. Victoria Castellano in the back row, her expression poisonous. But Dante's eyes never left mine, and in them I saw something that made this terrifying charade feel almost real. Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. I reached the altar, and Marco released my arm. Dante stepped forward, offering his hand. When our fingers touched, that familiar electricity sparked, and I saw his jaw tighten like he felt it too. This impossible connection we couldn't explain. The officiant began speaking words about love and commitment, and forever that felt like cruel jokes given the circumstances. I barely heard them. All my focus was on Dante, on the way his thumb stroked gentle, circles on my palm, on the tension in his shoulders that suggested he was fighting some internal battle. "Do you, Dante Marchesi, take Elena Voss to be your lawfully wedded wife?" His voice was steady, absolute. "I do." "And do you, Elena Voss, take Dante Marchesi to be your lawfully wedded husband?" This was it, the moment that would change everything. I could still walk away. Could still Dante's fingers tightened on mine. Not demanding, but anchoring, reminding me I wasn't alone in this. "I do." My voice rang clear and sure through the chapel. The officiant smiled. "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Dante's eyes widened slightly. We hadn't discussed this part, hadn't practiced, hadn't prepared for this moment of required intimacy. "It's okay," I whispered, so quietly only he could hear. "Sell it." Something flickered in his expression, surprise, gratitude, something darker. His hand rose to cup my face, thumb, brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "Are you sure?" His breath ghosted across my lips. Instead of answering, I closed the distance between us. The kiss started soft, tentative, a brush of lips meant for show. But the moment our mouths met, something ignited. Dante's hand slid into my hair, careful of the pins and veil, while his other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer. I gripped his jacket, feeling the hammer of his heart beneath expensive fabric. The kiss deepened, became something we hadn't agreed to, something real and hungry and desperate. I tasted wine on his lips, felt the tremor in his hands, heard the small sound that escaped his throat, half groan, half surrender. When we finally broke apart, his eyes were dark, pupils blown wide, and his breathing was ragged. "Cristo," he muttered, so low only I could hear. "That wasn't supposed to." Applause erupted around us, shattering the moment. Dante's mask slammed back into place, his expression smoothing into controlled satisfaction. But his hand at my waist trembled slightly, betraying him. We turned to face our audience, his family, his associates, his enemies, and I forced myself to smile like my world hadn't just tilted sideways. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dante announced, his voice carrying authority that silenced the room. "I present to you my wife, Elena Marchesi." Elena Marchesi. The name felt foreign, dangerous, like trying on someone else's skin. Giovanni was the first to approach, his smile sharp as broken glass. "Congratulations, nephew. Though I must say, this is quite sudden. We had no idea you were even seeing anyone. Love doesn't follow schedules, uncle." Dante's arm around my waist was possessive, protective. "When you know, you know." Indeed. Giovanni's eyes raked over me, assessing, calculating. "And what do you do, my dear Elena?" What captured my nephew's notoriously guarded heart? This was the test. The first of many. "I was working as a caterer," I said, meeting his gaze steadily. "Trying to make ends meet while pursuing my passion for art history. Dante and I met at the Rothschild Gala. He spilled champagne on me, actually. Very romantic." A ripple of laughter. Dante's fingers tightened on my waist approval. "How quaint." Aunt Margarita materialized beside Giovanni, her assessment even colder than her brother-in-law's. "Forgive me for being direct, but this seems remarkably convenient timing. Victoria Castellano's lawsuit against you became public knowledge this afternoon. And now you're married to the most powerful man in the city. One might call that opportunistic." Silence fell, sharp as a blade. I felt Dante tense beside me, ready to defend. But this was my test, my chance to prove I could stand in his world without crumbling. "You're right," I said calmly. "The timing is convenient. Victoria tried to destroy me for having the audacity to stand up to her. And yes, marrying Dante provides protection from that. But here's what's also true." I turned to look at Dante, and found his eyes already on mine. I could have run, could have changed my name, left the city, started over somewhere she'd never find me. Instead, I chose to stand my ground, to marry a man I barely know because he makes me want to be brave instead of safe. I looked back at Margarita. "So, call me opportunistic if you want, but I prefer to think of it as refusing to let bitter, petty people dictate my life. I learned that from your nephew. Actually, he seems quite good at it." For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. Then Margarita's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "Perhaps you're not as foolish as you look. Welcome to the family, Elena. Try not to die too quickly." She walked away, and conversations resumed, the tension breaking like a snapped wire. Dante leaned close, his lips brushing my ear. That was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Like I said, I turned my head, our faces, inches apart. "Can't I be both?" His laugh was low, intimate, sending shivers down my spine. "Remind me never to underestimate you." The reception continued around us, champagne flowing. Forced pleasantries exchanged. The careful dance of power and politics that defined this world. But through it all, Dante's hand never left me at my waist. On my arm, fingers intertwined with mine, claiming me, protecting me, binding us together in this beautiful, terrible lie. As midnight approached and guests began to depart, Victoria Castellano made her exit, pausing by us on her way out. "Congratulations," she said, her smile poisonous. "Though I give it 6 months, maybe less. Girls like you don't survive in our world, Elena. You're just another pretty toy that'll break when things get real." Dante stepped forward, his voice dropping to something lethal. "Touch her, threaten her, even look at her wrong, Victoria, and I'll bury your family so deep you'll never see daylight again. Are we clear?" She paled, nodded once, and fled. When the last guest departed, Dante and I stood alone in the chapel, married, bound, suspended between performance and something dangerously close to real. "Well," I said, exhausted and wired all at once. "That went better than expected. You were perfect." His voice was rough, better than I deserved. "Dante, I should let you rest." He stepped back, creating distance. "It's been a long day. Your rooms are ready. We don't have to. I know," I said softly. "The contract specifies separate bedrooms." "Right, the contract." Something pained crossed his face. "Good night, Elena." My wife. He walked away, leaving me alone in the chapel where we'd made vows we didn't mean, where a kiss had felt more real than anything I'd agreed to. I touched my lips, still feeling the ghost of his mouth on mine. 6 months. I just had to survive 6 months. So why did that kiss make me want forever? 3 weeks into our marriage, and I still couldn't sleep in that massive bed. The West Wing suite was beautiful, too beautiful, like living inside a jewelry box. Every morning, I woke expecting to find myself back in my cramped studio, this entire experience revealed as some fever dream. But then I'd see the harbor through the windows, hear the quiet efficiency of the household staff moving through the mansion, and reality would settle back over me like a weight. I was Elena Marchesi now, at least for 5 more months. Dante had kept his distance since the wedding professional, polite, careful not to cross the invisible boundaries we'd established. We shared meals when his schedule allowed, attended 2 charity galas where we played the devoted couple with practiced precision. In public, his hand found mine naturally. In private, we orbited each other like planets afraid to collide. But the kiss, that devastating, unexpected kiss at the altar, hung between us like unfinished business. I was in the library, sketching ideas for a gallery show I'd probably never curate, when Claudia found me. "Elena, Mr. Marchesi wants to see you in his study. Now." Something in her tone made my stomach clench. "Is something wrong?" "Just go. Quickly." I found Dante standing by the window, his posture rigid, a tumbler of amber liquid clutched in his hand. The setting sun painted him in shades of gold and shadow, highlighting the tension in his shoulders. "You wanted to see me?" He turned, and my breath caught. His eyes were wild, haunted, stripped of the careful control he usually wore like armor. "We have a problem." His voice was rough. "Giovanni made a move. He's been meeting with the Castellanos, the Russos, forming an alliance against me. They're calling for a vote, questioning my leadership, my judgment." He drained the glass in one swallow. "You! They're questioning you." Ice flooded my veins. "What do you mean?" "They've been digging into your background. They know about your mother, your stepfather, every ugly detail you've tried to bury. They're planning to present you as a liability, a woman with nothing to lose who married me for money and protection." His jaw clenched. "They're saying our marriage is fake, that I've grown weak, that I'm thinking with my—" He stopped himself. "They want me out, and they're using you to do it." The room spun. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't." He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders. "This isn't your fault. I knew this was coming. I just—" His eyes searched mine, desperate. "I didn't expect them to move so fast, or so viciously. What do we do?" He released me, turned away, and I saw the way his hands shook as he poured another drink. "There's a meeting tomorrow night. The 5 families, all the major players. They'll vote on my leadership. If I lose—" He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. If he lost everything. His empire, his power, possibly his life. And I would be collateral damage. How do we make them believe? My voice was steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. How do we prove this is real? Dante laughed, a bitter sound that had nothing to do with humor. They want to see weakness, vulnerability. They want proof that I'm a man capable of love, not just strategy. He turned back to me, and something blazed in his eyes, desperation mixed with something darker, hungrier. They want to see me undone by you. The air between us thickened, charged with possibility and danger. "Then let's give them a show," I whispered. "Elena." His voice broke. "You don't understand what you're offering. These people, they'll dig into every interaction, analyze every touch, every glance. If they sense we're performing, if they catch even a hint of pretense, then we don't pretend." The words escaped before I could stop them. "Not tomorrow, not with them watching." He stared at me, and I watched understanding dawn in his eyes, followed immediately by conflict. "You're saying we should—" "I'm saying that for one night, we stop acting like this marriage is just business. We let them see." I struggled to articulate what I meant. We let them see possibility. Something real, even if it's temporary. That's dangerous. He moved closer, each step deliberate. Because what if it stops being temporary? What if tomorrow night, when I touch you the way a husband should touch his wife, when I look at you like you're the only thing keeping me breathing, what if I can't turn it off afterward? My heart slammed against my ribs. What if I don't want you to? The confession hung between us, naked and terrifying. Dante closed the distance, his hand rising to cut my face with devastating gentleness. His thumb traced my lower lip, and I felt the tremor in his fingers. 3 weeks, he murmured. 3 weeks of sleeping down the hall from you, knowing you're in that bed alone. 3 weeks of playing at being strangers when all I want. He stopped himself, jaw clenching. This wasn't supposed to happen. You were supposed to be a solution, not a what? His eyes met mine, and what I saw there stole my breath. Not a necessity, he whispered. Not someone I think about constantly. Not the first person I want to tell when something goes right, or the only one I trust when everything goes wrong. His forehead dropped to rest against mine. You were supposed to be temporary, Elena. A beautiful lie I could walk away from. But somewhere between champagne and vows, you became something I don't know how to let go of. Tears burned behind my eyes. Dante, tomorrow night, he said, his voice rough with emotion and restraint. I'm going to kiss you in front of those vultures. I'm going to touch you like you're precious, like you're mine, like I'd burn the world to keep you safe. And it's going to feel real, because Cristo help me, it is real. He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine. But you need to understand what that means. If they believe us, you're tied to me, to my world, to every danger that comes with my name. And if we can't pull this off, if they vote against me, they won't just destroy me, they'll destroy you too, to prove a point. I know. My hands found his chest, feeling the hammer of his heart beneath expensive fabric. I've known since the moment I said yes. This was never going to be safe, Dante. But neither is living half a life, too afraid to reach for anything real. He made a sound half groan, half surrender, and suddenly his mouth was on mine. Not careful like at the wedding, not tentative or testing. This kiss was hunger and desperation and 3 weeks of restraint finally breaking. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head as he deepened the kiss, tasting me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. I kissed him back with equal desperation, my fingers clutching his shirt, pulling him closer, needing to eliminate every inch of space between us. He tasted like expensive whiskey and dangerous promises, and when his teeth caught my lower lip, a sound escaped me that I'd never made before. He broke away, both of us breathing hard, his eyes dark and wild. Tomorrow, he said, voice wrecked. Tomorrow we show them. But tonight, he released me, stepping back with visible effort. Tonight I need you to be sure. Because once we cross this line, there's no going back to pretending. No hiding behind contracts and convenient arrangements. I'm sure, I said, even as my hands trembled. Are you? For a long moment, he studied me, seeing past the designer clothes and carefully applied makeup to something deeper, something true. I've been sure since you grabbed my sleeve at the Rothschild gala, he admitted quietly. Since you looked at me like I was just a man worth knowing. Everything after that has just been me trying not to fall completely. How's that working out? His smile was sad, resigned, beautiful. Terribly. He left me, standing there, my lips swollen from his kiss, my heart racing with fear and anticipation, and something that felt dangerously like falling. Tomorrow, we would face his enemies together. Tomorrow, we would either convince them our love was real, or we would both pay the price for this beautiful, terrible lie. But tonight, alone in my suite with the taste of him still on my lips, I finally admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. The lie had stopped being a lie, somewhere between champagne spills and desperate kisses, between contracts and vows. I'd done the one thing I'd sworn not to do. I'd started falling for Dante Marchesi, and tomorrow night, in front of everyone who wanted to destroy him, I was going to have to show them just how far I'd fallen. The question was whether either of us would survive the impact. The Bellecourt Hotel ballroom was designed to intimidate soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers that looked like frozen waterfalls, and enough marble to build a mausoleum, which, I thought grimly as we arrived, might be appropriate given what was about to happen here. The 5 families had gathered, their most powerful members positioned like chess pieces across the room. I recognized faces from Claudia's briefings, the Castellanos in their corner, Victoria among them with her venomous smile, the Russos near the bar, watching everything with calculating eyes, the Bianchis by the windows, and Giovanni Marchesi, holding court near the center, his silver hair gleaming under the lights like a crown, all of them waiting to pass judgment on Dante. On us. Remember, Dante murmured as we paused at the entrance, his hand warm at the small of my back. We're not performing tonight, we're just us. As if we knew what that meant. As if 3 weeks and a stolen kiss had taught us how to be anything other than two people playing at forever. But when I looked up at him, saw the vulnerability beneath his carefully controlled expression, something settled in my chest. A decision. A surrender. "Then let's show them who we are," I whispered. His eyes darkened, and his hand slid around my waist, pulling me closer. "Cristo, you're brave. Or foolish. We've established I'm both." His laugh was low, intimate, and it drew every eye in the room. We descended into the ballroom like we were walking into battle, which, essentially, we were. Conversations died as we passed. I felt the weight of their scrutiny, their judgment, their expectations that we would fail. Dante. Giovanni separated from his group, his smile sharp, and the blushing bride. "How domestic you've become, nephew. Though I hear rumors that this little arrangement is more business than pleasure." "Then you're hearing wrong, uncle." Dante's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "My marriage is none of your concern. Unless you'd like to explain why you've been meeting with the Castellanos behind my back?" A ripple of tension spread through the room. Giovanni's smile never wavered. "I've been discussing the family's future. Something you seem to have forgotten in favor of. Distractions." His gaze raked over me dismissively. "We're concerned, Dante. A man in your position needs a partner of substance, not some opportunistic gold digger playing dress-up." I felt Dante tense beside me, ready to defend, but I squeezed his hand, a silent message. "You're right," I said, meeting Giovanni's cold eyes. "I am an opportunist. I saw a chance to marry a man who treats me like I matter, who looks at me like I'm more than my bank account or my pedigree, and I took it. Call me whatever names make you feel powerful, but at least I chose Dante for who he is, not what he can do for me politically." I smiled, sweet as poison. "Can everyone in this room say the same about their marriages?" Silence, then unexpectedly laughter from somewhere behind Giovanni. One of the Russo family members, an older man with kind eyes, raised his glass in salute. "She's got fire, Dante. I like her." Giovanni's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Aunt Margarita materialized beside us. "Enough posturing," she said sharply. "We came here for a vote, not a verbal sparring match. Though I must say, Elena, you're learning our ways faster than expected." Her assessment was clinical, but not entirely cold. "Perhaps there's hope for you yet." "The vote," Giovanni announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "All in favor of maintaining Dante's leadership of the Marchesi family interests, say aye." The Russos voted aye, the Bianchis followed, but the Castellanos remained silent, and several other families hesitated, watching Giovanni. "All opposed?" Giovanni's hand rose, along with 4 others. Not enough to remove Dante, but enough to show the fracture in his power. "And those who abstain?" 6 hands. 6 families refusing to commit, waiting to see which way the wind blew. Giovanni smiled, triumphant. "It seems, nephew, that your leadership is not as secure as you believed. Perhaps if you spent less time playing house and more time, enough." Dante's voice cut through the room like a blade. He pulled me closer, his hand sliding up to cup my face with devastating gentleness. "You want proof that my marriage is real? That Elena is more than a convenient arrangement?" He turned to me, and what I saw in his eyes made my breath catch raw, unguarded, terrifyingly honest. "You're right," he said softly, speaking to me but loud enough for everyone to hear. "I've been distracted. Because for the first time in 3 years, I'm not alone. For the first time since I lost everyone who mattered, I wake up and there's someone worth protecting. Someone who looks at the monster I've become and sees possibility instead of fear." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I felt the tremor in his hand. "Elena, you were supposed to be temporary, a solution to a problem, but somewhere between your defiance and your courage, between your laugh and the way you challenge me when I'm being an ass, you became necessary. You became home." His voice broke slightly. "And I don't give a damn what they think, what they vote, what they believe, because for once in my godforsaken life, something real is mine. And I'm not letting you go. Not in 6 months. Not ever." The ballroom had gone completely silent. "Unless..." His eyes searched mine, vulnerable and desperate. "Unless you want to leave. If you do, I'll honor the contract. I'll let you walk away. But Cristo, Elena, I'm hoping you'll stay. Not because of money or protection or any of the reasons you agreed to this, but because maybe Maybe you feel this too. This impossible, terrifying thing that's been growing between us since the moment champagne hit your uniform and you looked at me like I was worth knowing. Tears blurred my vision. Every person in that ballroom faded away until there was only him, this complicated, dangerous, devastatingly honest man who'd somehow become everything I hadn't known I needed. "You're an idiot," I whispered, and his face fell. "If you think I could walk away from you now, if you think contracts and time limits mean anything when you look at me like that." I reached up, my hand covering his on my face. "I love you, Dante Marchesi. I don't know when it happened, maybe when you defended me at the gala, maybe when you offered me a choice instead of a cage, maybe 5 minutes ago when you just handed these vultures your heart on a silver platter. But I love you. Terrifyingly. Completely. With no idea how this ends, but willing to find out. Elena, my name was a prayer, a plea, a promise. And then he was kissing me. Not for show, not for politics, but because we were two people who'd found something real in the middle of something fake, and neither of us could hold back anymore. His kiss was hunger and relief and desperation all tangled together. My hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer, needing to eliminate every inch of space between us. He kissed me like I was oxygen, like the room wasn't full of people watching, like nothing mattered except this, us, real and messy and impossibly right. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the ballroom erupted. Not in judgment, in applause. Even Giovanni looked shaken, his careful plot unraveling in the face of something he couldn't manipulate or control genuine emotion. "Well," Aunt Margarita said dryly, "I suppose that settles the question of authenticity." She looked at Giovanni with barely concealed satisfaction. "Your concerns about Dante's judgment appear to be unfounded. A man who loves like that isn't weak, he's dangerous. Because now he has something worth killing for." Giovanni's jaw clenched, but he nodded slowly. "It seems I've underestimated you both. My apologies, nephew." The words were grudging, but genuine. "The vote stands. Your leadership is secure." But I barely heard him. All my attention was on Dante, on the way he looked at me like I'd just saved his life instead of almost destroying it. "Take me home," I whispered. "Please." His eyes darkened with promise and hunger and something that looked like reverence. "As you wish, Mrs. Marchesi." We left the ballroom hand in hand, aware of every eye following us, no longer caring about appearances or politics or anything beyond the certainty that tonight, everything would change. The car ride back to the mansion was electric silence. Dante's hand never left mine, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm that felt like promises written in a language only our bodies understood. When we finally reached the mansion, he pulled me inside, past curious staff, up the stairs to the west wing, but instead of stopping at my suite, he kept walking to his rooms, to his space, to the bedroom I'd never seen. "Elena." He turned to face me, his expression torn between desire and restraint. "If you want to stop, if this is too fast, if you need time." I silenced him. With a kiss, pouring 3 weeks of restraint, 3 weeks of wanting, 3 weeks of falling into this moment. "I'm sure," I breathed against his lips. "I'm terrified and certain, and I have no idea what tomorrow brings. But tonight, I'm yours. Completely." His control shattered. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me to the bed. His kisses turned urgent, desperate, his hands sliding over silk and skin, mapping every curve like he was memorizing salvation. "I love you," he murmured against my throat, my collarbone, the hollow between my breasts. "God help me, I love you." And then there were no more words, just skin and sighs and the desperate coming together of two people who'd built something real from beautiful lies. Outside, the city glittered with indifferent stars. But inside, wrapped in Dante's arms, I'd found something I'd stopped believing in. Home. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the weight of Dante's arm across my waist. For a moment, I lay perfectly still, afraid that moving would shatter whatever spell had transformed last night from contract to confession, from performance to promise. His breath was warm against my shoulder, steady and peaceful in a way I'd never seen him while awake. In sleep, the harsh lines of his face softened. The tension he carried like armor had melted away, revealing someone younger, more vulnerable, someone who looked like he'd finally found rest after years of war. I traced the edge of his jaw with gentle fingers, memorizing this moment the morning after everything changed. His eyes opened slowly, and for a heartbeat, I saw pure, unguarded joy before reality crashed back in. "Elena." My name was rough with sleep and wonder. You're still here. Where else would I be? I don't know, part of me thought. He stopped himself, pulled me closer. Thought I'd dreamed you, dreamed all of this. I pressed my lips to his chest, feeling the hammer of his heart. Not a dream, though it feels impossible, doesn't it? That we went from strangers to this in 3 weeks. 24 days, he corrected, a smile tugging at his mouth. Not that I've been counting. Liar. His laugh vibrated through both of us. You're right. I've counted every moment since champagne hit your uniform, and you looked at me like I was just a man worth defending. He rolled, pinning me beneath him, his weight grounding and protective all at once. What have you done to me, Elena Marchesi? I was supposed to be untouchable, unbreakable, and you've destroyed me with kindness and courage, and that damn stubborn refusal to be afraid of me. I am afraid of you, I admitted quietly. Terrified. Of how much I feel. How fast this happened. How completely you've become everything. He offered, and I heard the vulnerability beneath the word. Yes. I cupped his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. Everything. Which is why we need to talk about what happens next. His expression shuddered, slightly. The contract. The contract specified 6 months, but last night, I struggled to articulate what I meant. Last night stopped being about contracts. So I need to know, Dante, what do you want? Really want? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he rolled away, sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me, all the vulnerability from moments ago locked away behind familiar walls. What I want is impossible, he said quietly. I want you safe. I want you happy. I want you to have the life you deserve, the gallery, the freedom, all the dreams you've been too afraid to chase. And I want Cristo. I want you beside me, forever, waking up to you every morning, coming home to you every night, building something real that has nothing to do with politics or power or any of this madness. He turned, and the naked longing in his eyes made my chest ache. But I can't have both, Elena. Because my world is poison. Last night proved that they were ready to destroy you to get to me. Victoria, Giovanni, all of them. They'll keep coming, keep testing, keep looking for weaknesses to exploit. And you, his voice broke, you're the biggest weakness I've ever had, which means you're the target they'll aim for. Understanding crashed over me. You're thinking of letting me go. I'm thinking of keeping you alive. He stood, pacing like a caged animal. The vote last night bought us time, but it didn't eliminate the threat. Giovanni will regroup, the Castellanos will plot, and eventually, someone will decide that the easiest way to hurt me is to hurt you. So maybe the smart thing, the right thing, is to honor the original contract. Let you walk away with your money and your freedom before... Before what? I stood, wrapping the sheet around myself. Before you have to watch me die like your brother? Like Isabel? He flinched as if I'd struck him. Tell me what happened to her. I pressed, knowing I was pushing but unable to stop. Tell me what you're so afraid of repeating. Elena, no. If we're having this conversation, if you're thinking of pushing me away to protect me, then I deserve the truth. What happened to Isabel Laurent? His hands clenched into fists, his jaw working as he fought some internal battle. Finally, the words came raw and broken. She was a plant, a spy sent by the Castellanos to get close to me, to learn my weaknesses, my plans. We were engaged for 8 months before I found out. 8 months of lies, of her feeding information to my enemies, of me falling for someone who never existed. His laugh was bitter. The night I confronted her, she ran. I sent people to bring her back, to get answers. They found her car at the bottom of a cliff 3 days later. Empty. No body. Just blood and her engagement ring on the seat. Horror flooded through me. Dante. I don't know if she staged her death or if someone killed her to keep her quiet. I spent a year searching, tearing the city, apart looking for answers. Nothing. She's just gone, like she never existed. He finally met my eyes, and the pain there was devastating. So you see, everyone I love either betrays me or dies. And I can't, Cristo, Elena, I can't survive losing you. So maybe it's better if I let you go now, before I'm so far gone that losing you destroys what's left of me. I crossed to him, placing my hands on his chest, feeling the frantic beat of his heart. What if I don't want to be let go? My voice was steady despite the tears streaming down my face. What if I'd rather face danger with you than safety without you? What if the smart thing and the right thing are different? And I'm choosing right. You don't understand what you're choosing, don't I? I pressed closer, refusing to let him retreat behind his walls. I'm choosing a man who showed me I was worth fighting for when I'd forgotten how to fight for myself. I'm choosing someone who looked at my mess and my damage and my stubborn pride and called it beautiful. I'm choosing us, Dante. Messy and dangerous and impossibly complicated us. Because I'd rather have one real day with you than a lifetime of safe, empty days without you. Elena. His arms came around me, crushing me against his chest. You're going to be the death of me. Or your salvation, I countered. We won't know unless you stop trying to protect me from your life and let me live it with you. He pulled back, cupping my face with trembling hands. What if I fail? What if something happens to you because I was selfish enough to keep you? Then we fail together. That's what marriage means, isn't it? Not the contract version, the real version. Standing together even when it's terrifying. Especially when it's terrifying. For a long moment, he searched my eyes, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any excuse to push me away for my own good. He found none. You're sure? His voice cracked. Even knowing everything, the danger, the enemies, the possibility that loving me could cost you everything? I've never been more sure of anything. I stood on my toes, pressing my forehead to his. I love you, Dante Marchesi. Not in 6 months. Not someday. Now. Always. For however long we get. His kiss was desperate relief and renewed promise all tangled together. When he broke away, his eyes were wet. Then we tear up the contract, he said firmly. No more time limits. No more exit strategies. Just us. Figuring this out as we go. His thumb brushed away my tears. And I'm installing better security. Adding more guards. Teaching you self-defense. If you're staying in my world, you're staying protected. Overprotective much? Catastrophically. He smiled, and it transformed his face. But you signed up for this, Mrs. Marchesi. No refunds. I wouldn't dream of it. We spent the morning tangled together, making plans that felt impossibly hopeful. Dante called his lawyers to officially dissolve the contract. I called Claudia too. Discuss converting the West Wing sitting room into a studio space where I could begin curating art again, not for survival, but for love. By afternoon, we emerged to find the household staff trying very hard to pretend they hadn't been speculating wildly about our relationship status. Mr. and Mrs. Marchesi. Marco greeted us with the closest thing to a smile I'd ever seen on his face. Good to see you both. Together. Get used to it, Dante said, his arm around my waist. She's not going anywhere. That evening, we stood on the terrace overlooking the harbor, watching the sun set in shades of amber and gold. The city glittered below us, dangerous and beautiful, full of threats and possibilities. Regrets? Dante asked softly. I thought about my old life, the cramped apartment, the endless struggle, the careful invisibility I'd cultivated to survive. Then I looked at the man beside me, complicated and damaged, and devastatingly honest, and felt something settle in my chest. Not even one. He pulled me closer, and we stood there as darkness fell. Two people who'd built something real from beautiful lies, who'd found love in the last place either of us expected. The 5 families still circled. Dangers still lurked in shadows. Our future was uncertain, built on foundations of power and blood and complicated family politics. But we had each other, and somehow, impossibly, that felt like enough. I love you, Dante murmured against my hair. Thank you for being brave enough to stay. I love you too. I turned in his arms, meeting his eyes in the twilight. Thank you for being brave enough to let me. The city lights blazed to life around us, thousands of sparks against the darkness. We'd started as strangers connected by champagne and desperation. We'd become husband and wife through contracts and necessity. But somewhere between the lies and the truth, the performance and the promise, we'd found something neither of us had been looking for. Love. Real, messy, terrifying, perfect love. And this time, we were keeping it. Forever.